Medicine Nux Vomica in Glycosuria. The purpose of knowledge shared here is only educational and to increase awareness. Please always consult your family doctor before using any medicine. Self-treatment may always be injurious. ग्लाइकोसूरिया अर्थात पेशाब में शुगर आना, डायबिटीज़ की बीमारी कभी ठीक नहीं होती है ऐसा विश्वास किया जाता है, किंतु यह निराधार तथा भ्रामक है और सत्य नहीं है। यदि आपको ग्लाइकोसूरिया है, पेशाब में शुगर आ रही है, जहां आप पेशाब करते हैं वहां छींटे लग जाते हैं और यहाँ बताए गए लक्षण आपको हैं, तो आपके लिए नक्स वोमिका उपयुक्त दवा है। आइए जानें कि ग्लाइकोसूरिया नामक बीमारी में दवा नक्स वोमिका कब उपयोगी है। When to use Nux Vomica in Glycosuria. Good livers and sedentary habits, acidity with dyspeptic troubles, constriction of the throat, dry cough, pain in the back, numbness, pyretic condition of the lower extremities, after ineffectual desire to urinate, frequent and more copious urination than could be expected from the quantity of liquid taken. Sexual desire is strong. Spinal lesions are exciting cause. आइए जानें मेडिसिन नक्स वोमिका के कुछ अन्य महत्वपूर्ण लक्षण। Convulsions with consciousness, spasm renewed by the slightest touch, spasm ceased when the patient was tightly grasped or the elbow was straightened up. During the spasm, relief by forcible extension of the body. Convulsions came on beginning with slight twitchings in muscles of lower extremities. Convulsions with red face and closed eyes, opisthotonos and throwing back of the head. Spasm and exaggerated sensitiveness are the keynotes of Nux. There is irritability of bladder and rectum at the same time, constant urging and desire and very little pause, prolapse of rectum with constipation, or there may be incontinence of both urine and feces, uterine bearing down and prolapse, cramps at menstrual periods and pressure on bladder and rectum. The irritability and excessive sensitiveness of Nux depicted in the tetanic seizures and drawn facial expression applies to mind as well as body. Nux is especially suited to very particular zealous persons inclined to get angry and excited or of a spiteful, malicious disposition. Ardent persons are disposed to anger, spite or deception, always irritable or impatient. Nervous, melancholic people troubled with indigestion, venous constitution with tendency to hemorrhoids. Thin, irritable, choleric persons with dark hair who make great mental exertion or lead a sedentary life. Vigorous persons of dry habit, tense fiber, ardent and irascible temperament, and tenacious disposition. Bilious temperament, persons addicted to wine, coffee, or pepper and condiments, who live a sedentary life with much mental exertion. Debauchees, thin, irritable venous. Drugged subjects throughout all these classes, moral, mental, nervous, and muscular tension or spasms may be traced, but ennui, loss of energy, may also be indications for nux. They are alternating states. There are few drugs which produce a greater degree of irritability than nux, running as it does to the verge of homicidal and suicidal impulse. Intestinal spasm is exemplified in the spasms which follow eating unripe fruit and other digestive irregularities, and sometimes they take the form of incipient hernia. Hernia, inguinal and umbilical, has been cured with nux, and strangulated hernia resolved by nux whilst preparation for operation were in progress. Although there are many pains in connection with the rectum, constipation or spasm is the leading feature. Constrictive sensation at times, as if he would be obliged to go to stool. After a stool, it seemed as if some remained behind and could not be evacuated, with a sensation of constriction in rectum, not in anus. Discharge of bright blood with feces, with a sensation of constriction and contraction in rectum during stool. Stool daily, though always with a colicky sensation in abdomen, and with the stool it always seems as if it was not enough. Frequent ineffectual desire for stool after the usual evacuation. The diarrhea of nux is sudden and drives the patient out of bed, or is involuntary, or comes on after a meal. Alternate constipation and diarrhea. In dysentery of nux, the straining ceases as soon as the motion passes. This distinguishes nux from some other remedies. There is tendency to faint after diarrheic stools and also after vomiting. This tendency to fainting is another example of the nux sensitiveness. It occurs from odors in a warm room, after eating, after every labor pain. Nux has proved curative in epilepsy when the fit occurred during stool. Nux is hemorrhagic. There is metrorrhagia in high livers and also menorrhagia. Menses too early and profuse, flow dark, faints easily, irregular, cease flowing at night time. The pains are cramping and cause nausea and fainting, twisting, moving about in abdomen, soreness across pubes, cramp in bladder, during pregnancy, hiccup, morning sickness, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, false pains. Labor pains are violent and cause fainting. Loggia scanty offensive, nipples sore, white spot in center. Tensive pains when nursing. Desire is excited in both sexes, and here again the sensitiveness of nux is observed. The slightest provocation suffices to excite the sexual passion. Spasm is the chief note of nux in respiratory sphere, where it produces a variety of asthmatic states, a dry, persistent, fatiguing cough which causes headache as if skull would burst, as if skull would split. The general conditions of Nux are the best guides in such cases, but it must not be supposed that Nux cannot cure cases which are not purely spasmodic. Bronchitis with copious moist rales and expectoration. In addition to spasms, Nux causes languor, great nervous stability, as from sexual or other excesses, trembling, excitement with trembling, paralysis, paralysis after apoplexy, parse cold, numb, emaciated, hemiplegia, locomotor ataxia has been relieved by it. Nux is a drowsy medicine and it also produces sleeplessness, insomnia. Wakes 3 a.m. and lies awake for hours. Falls asleep when it is time to rise and feels heavy and unrefreshed. It is curative in cases where sleep is unattainable except from a stimulant. The symptoms of Nux are better after undisturbed sleep, worse when sleep is disturbed. In Nux, chilliness is prominent. Nux is one of chief hydrogenoids. Intermittent fevers, periodic neuralgias, chilliness, cannot get warm in bed at night, coldness of whole body with blue hands, with blue skin, cold moist hands with cold tip of nose, repugnance to cold or cold air, chilly on least movement from being uncovered, must be covered in every stage of fever, chill, heat or sweat. In the fever there is great heat, whole body burning hot, face red and hot, yet patient cannot move or uncover without being chilly. But Nux may have intolerance of covering during sweat with heat. Nux has hunger with aversion to food, loss of appetite and sudden satiety. Felt as if she had had nothing to eat for a week. Heart feeling up in throat, biliousness, general heat and scarlet redness of face, headache. The red face of Nux is a characteristic feature. Catamania a few days before the time and rather too copious, or keeping on several days longer, with complaints at the onset which remain until it is over. Calcaria has the same, but the temperaments differ. Patients that required Nux for this condition could hardly ever take pulsatilla for anything. For instance, if they had a green bland thick discharge and pulse were given, it would often bring on too early and profuse menstruation. Sepia, on the other hand, would cure the catarrh and not interfere with the menses. Feels worse in morning, soon after waking, also after mental exertion, after eating and in cold air. Sour breath is a leading indication for Nux. After eating, sour taste, pressure in stomach an hour or two afterwards, with hypochondriacal mood, tightness about waist, must loosen clothing, confused, cannot use mind 2 or 3 hours after a meal, epigastrium bloated with pressure as from a stone in the stomach. The pressure 2 or 3 hours after eating distinguishes nux from nux masta and chromicum, which have it immediately after. Nux has many eye symptoms: night blindness, sciatica, sensation under middle of sternum like a lump of hot lead as large as 2 fists. Among the peculiar sensations are as if something heavy fell into head, as if his head were immensely larger than his body, as if pressing a nail into brain, into vertex, as if brain beaten to cleft with an axe, as if skull pressed asunder, as if hot water in eye, as if eyes could be pressed out, as if he had received a bruise over eye, as if a hot plate of iron were nearly in contact with face. Face feels as if he were sitting before a hot fire, as if a ball or plug in throat, as if skin is scratched off throat with a sharp instrument, as if throat too narrow, as if a stone in abdomen, as if abdomen raw and sore, as if bowels, bladder and rectum were pressed with a sharp instrument, as if hernia would occur, as if everything in region of umbilicus were being shattered and torn, navel as if drawn in, chest as if drawn together, as if room had been exhausted of air, as if something torn loose in chest, as if blood would be jerked out of veins, as of a band above knees, as of a band round body, stiffness, numbness, burning stitches. Symptoms are worse in morning, worse in open air, worse by motion, worse by mental exertion. Worse in morning in the greatly predominating feature of nux. The best time to give nux is in the evening at bedtime, that is well away from the time of its chief aggravations. Cough and some other symptoms are worse in night, worse after midnight, worse 3 or 4 a.m., worse during day, drowsiness during day. Menses return at full moon, although nux is sensitive to chill, draught and air, most symptoms being worse by cold water and by getting wet. Still the symptoms generally are worse in dry weather, better in wet weather, but wet weather aggravates facial neuralgia and wet warm weather causes gastric and bilious fever. Warm room and warm covering ameliorate headache, but warm room causes fainting. Summer heat is insupportable. Sunshine aggravates headache. Open air ameliorates flatulence and asthma and aggravates all other symptoms. Worse in wind, rest ameliorates, better from lying down on site, motion aggravates. Exertion, physical or mental, aggravates. Worse from shaking head, eating aggravates. Milk sours on stomach. When eating, heat in head. Worse from coffee, worse from cold food, worse from cold water, worse from wine. Alcoholic drinks both aggravate and ameliorate. Touch aggravates, pressure ameliorates, but cannot bear tight clothing. Rubbing ameliorates, riding in carriage causes sickness, coughing aggravates, shocks are felt in pit of stomach with every cough, worse from pollutions, worse from stomach derangement, worse after stool, worse before urinating, worse when yawning, worse during and after menses. Old symptoms are renewed and new ones occur. Worse on waking at night, worse from music. There is very great amelioration for a short time after a stool. Thank you.